We have been listening to the Quit India movement in the Indian context and how it started in India, what were the conditions which led to the Quit India movement. And Professor Mittal also very in detail outlined the consequences of the movement. When we listen to this whole incident of the movement, it comes to the mind that what was happening in the various regions. Was it totally, was it same everywhere, or were there regional variations? Which during the course of my research some years back, I found that one of the first things that that strikes you is how Bihar was totally inflamed with the passion of this movement. Following the adoption of the 8th August resolution of the All India Congress Committee at the Gowalia tank in Bombay, the Indian masses rose in revolt, and this came to be known as the Quit India movement. It was a call for freedom, nothing less than freedom, as Gandhiji said. The very next day, Gandhiji and several leaders were arrested by the British government, and demonstrations of all levels broke out throughout the country in the following days. With the progress of the Second World War and the serious situations arising out of that, which we saw in the morning, as Professor Mittal also outlined, the other speakers also talked about the impact of the Second World War on the whole incident, the Indian National Congress then adopted a policy of agreeing to a few conditions laid down by the British. At the same time, the government in England also decided to accept a few demands of the Indian nationalists. So there was a mutual consensus that, okay, you do this, we will agree to this, but only to this level. By the middle of 1942, the Japanese troops were approaching the borders of India. Pressures were mounting from China, United States, etc., on Britain to solve the issue of the future status of India before the end of the war. In March 1942, the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill announced in the Parliament that with the end of the war, India would be granted colonial self-rule. That's not freedom. As the next step, Sir Stafford Cripps, a member of the War Cabinet, was dispatched to India to discuss the British government's draft declaration. The draft granted Indians a dominion status after the war, but otherwise conceded few changes to the British Government Act of 1935. We also call it as the Government of India Act of 1935, which Sir had elaborated in his speech in the morning, how it was to give provincial autonomy, a federation structure, communal electorate and all that. So this was also very dissatisfactory. The draft was unacceptable to the Congress Working Committee, who rejected it. Thus, the failure of the Cripps mission estranged the Congress and the British government. So they fell apart. Now, using the failure of the Cripps mission combined with the advances of the Japanese in Southeast Asia and the general frustration with the British in India, as the pretext, Gandhiji called for a voluntary British withdrawal from India. Hectic Congress activity took place at this juncture, culminating in the meeting of the All India Congress Committee in Allahabad and the subsequent meeting of the CWC in Wardha, which proposed the Quit India resolution, which was then approved by the AICC session in Bombay in August. This resolution authorized Gandhiji to take charge of the non-violent mass movement. If power was not immediately handed over to the Indians, this was the time when Gandhiji gave a call for do or die. Historians have commented on this changed stance of Gandhiji. Everyone commented in the morning also that this was something new that was happening, and how Gandhiji could come to that level, how he suddenly said, okay, do or die, or something like a violence, the streak of violence in his speech. That was very interesting. That was a major change. This remarkable change in Gandhiji's attitude seems very unusual, and he appeared to be in an unusually militant mood. This was very unusual for him. However, when the movement started, the British repression was equally harsh. The British struck with a heavy hand, and several leaders, including Gandhiji, were instantly arrested. The Working Committee, the All India Congress Committee, and the 4 provincial Congress committees were declared unlawful associations under the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1908. The Assembly of Public Meetings were prohibited under the Rule 56 of the Defence India Rules. The arrest of Gandhi and the Congress leaders led to mass demonstrations throughout India. Thousands were killed and injured in the wake of the Quit India movement. Strikes were called in many places. The British swiftly suppressed many of these demonstrations by mass detentions, and as Sir also pointed out, more than 10,000 people were imprisoned throughout the country. In the face of severe government repression, the agitation was forced to move underground. These activities involved sabotaging of war efforts by dislocating communication systems, propaganda activities by using various means, including a clandestine radio station run by the lesser known, at that time she was not known, Usha Mehta, from somewhere in India. People didn't even know where it was. It was so clandestine. With the passage of time, underground activities came to be channeled in 3 streams. A radical group under the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan, who organized guerrilla warfare, especially at the India-Nepal border. A centrist group led by the Congress socialists like Aruna Asaf Ali, who mobilized volunteers throughout India for sabotage activities, and a Gandhian group led by Sucheta Kripalani and others. Naturally, they emphasized non-violent action and constructive program. So these contradictory streams were already there since the very beginning. The government used violence at an unprecedented scale to suppress the August Revolution. Some also called it the August Revolution. And as a justification for repression. The Quit India movement, more than anything, united the Indian people against the British rule. Because in the morning we were wondering what it actually led to. So unity maybe is one message that is seen at the grassroots, especially all over the country. Although most demonstrations had been suppressed by 1944, upon his release in 1944, Gandhiji continued his resistance and went on a 21-day fast. By the end of the Second World War, Britain's place in the world had changed dramatically, and the demand for independence could no longer be ignored. The whole of India did not convulse in the same way, and this is the main focus of my paper. And the intensity of the movement varied from region to region. Amidst all the unrest that followed, the situation in Bihar was one of the most volatile in the whole country. One of the reasons that one sees here is because here the Kisan Sabha had done major preparatory organizational groundwork. By this time, as we all know, a lot of labor organizations and Kisan Sabhas had emerged. Here in Bihar, activities on the lines of protests and demonstrations began on an extensive scale, and they were very spontaneous and very immediate. By the evening of 8th August, the telegraph and telephone wires were cut at many places, and telephone posts were uprooted. Obstructions were laid on the roads by putting logs of wood, branches of trees, stone slabs. They were removed from drains and other things. Roads were cut and culverts and bridges were damaged. The Searchlight staff reporter mentioned on 13th August, that is the sight that meets the eye when one went around the new and old Kadamkuan areas and the major portion of the lower road this morning. I'm quoting from there. The same was to be seen on the main road as well as east of the Maidan and again from Golghar right up to Dikha. So the whole of Patna area was under siege. The Kadamkuan and Naya Tola post offices were damaged. The residential areas plunged into darkness owing to damage caused to the fuse boxes at the junction of the roads. In these areas, a motor bus carrying a police party was set to fire and completely burnt. The movement, as soon as it was announced, and when they got to know that Rajendra Prasad was also imprisoned, furious demonstrations erupted all over. And in fact, when the police came to arrest him, he was also medically examined, and it was realized that he cannot be taken away. But still he was detained, and that also fueled the people's imagination and their wrath. The conflagration started actually at Patna city, where the students took the initiative to mobilize a mammoth rally at the Secretariat on 11th August and tried to hoist a Congress flag atop the Assembly building. I think that's a very famous statue also around the Secretariat where, you know, the revolutionaries are seen holding a flag, and some of them are being shot. The student initiative was soon appropriated by the masses, who also burnt railway stations, municipal buildings, post offices, local police, etc. Their thanas were burnt. The police seemed powerless until the army was called out on the 12th. In the Patna, the students in the Patna area, the students who demonstrated were shot, and 7 of them also died. So that was a violent beginning in Bihar, where in the remote areas, in several districts of Bihar, these incidents of violence kept on happening. But at the same time, there are streaks of non-violence also. So there is somewhere the Gandhian impact, which is also seen in the demonstrations in Bihar, which was all through seen all over India. There was manifestation of fury and violence also in other parts of Bihar. From the 12th August, after slight beginning on the 11th August, for example, at Munger, the educational institutions and the gates of the Munger fort were picketed, and the picketers were dispersed by a furious lathi charge. The students also picketed East India Railway, the school at Jamalpur, and hoisted the national flag on the municipal buildings there. The telegraphic communication with Patna was cut off, and the mob brought in the railway station. They went into the railway station and the post office, and these were totally destroyed. Some of the student volunteers, they locked the opium shops also in that area. So armed police was dispatched around the Begusarai town. The lawyers were requested to suspend practice, and the national flag was hoisted at some of these places. Many students met at the Teghara hospital. They have a hospital there, and they hoisted the national flag there. So there was a complete hartal at Balia, and the procession was organized at Meghal and Manjol. These are the areas in that district. In a well-attended meeting in that district, the program of the movement was unfolded to the people. So while severe processions and demonstrations and destruction was on, side by side they were announcing their programs, and even Gandhiji's program was read at many places. In Jamshedpur, for example, the movement started with the strike of the local constabulary on the 9th, as early as on the 9th of August. This strike was led by the TISCO staff. You have the Tata Iron and Steel Company at Jamshedpur. A strike in TISCO on the 10th and again on the 20th, when about 30,000 workers took part. In Dalmia Nagar, a nearby area, too, there was a labor strike on the 12th. And on both these occasions, complicity of the management was suspected by the administration. So it was very obvious that the management was fueling these strikes and was supporting them by standing with them. However, more important was the peasant revolt that took place in the weeks that followed in practically every district of Bihar. Under the initiative of students, thousands of ordinary peasants attacked and looted local treasury, buildings and railway. stations killed unarmed European officers in public, thus ceremonially destroying the physical presence of the colonial authority. Isolated police thanas were taken over and destroyed when the lower level village police and local civilian administrators vacated their posts without resistance. So at places, some of the police and the local administrators and the staff, they would willingly join, or they would relent, they would just give up and don't resist, because they also supported the movement. This was covertly supported by the zamindars and merchants also, that is, the signs are there. Of course, they would never support such an anti-establishment movement overtly, but covertly they were supporting. By supplying funding and participation came from across caste barriers also. The most significant example of lower caste participation was the formation of a parallel government in Bihar by the Gopes and Dusads, who formed their own Raj and started levying taxes. So at some of the places in Bihar, there is evidence that they formed their own government, calling it the Raj. The peasant movement in Bihar was ruthlessly suppressed by the British Army, which was given a free hand to torture and burn down entire villages. The movement hereafter went underground and was coordinated from around 1943 by a new organizational structure called the Azad Dastas, or the guerrilla bands, which operated mainly in South Bihar, conducting raids on ammunition depots, treasuries, and other government offices. Some of the leaders, and in this the name of Jayaprakash Narayan is very prominent. He helped them, and he was helped by the Azad Dastas. However, there is evidence, some historians say that later these Dastas became total, went out of control and also indulged in social crimes, but we need more research to support this. They became gangs of landless peasants and indulged in various other crimes apart from the freedom, the issue of freedom. Apart from these incidents and these various classes or various groups of people who were actually participating in this Quit India movement in Bihar, there is evidence of in almost every district showing that how they were active. The movement was so active in almost all the districts of Bihar, including the tribal areas, because at that time the Jharkhand area was also in Bihar. Especially on 10th August, all the political organizations like Sadakat Ashram, Kadam Kuan, where the Kisan Sabha offices were situated, and the district Congress offices were seized by the police. There was, apart from the government repression, the people's reaction also was very simultaneous, almost together. There was a total strike in educational institutions and national flags were flown everywhere. The incident of 11th August became very unforgettable, as I mentioned earlier. On the orders of W.G. Arthur, the magistrate of Patna, the students were actually killed. So many of them were killed. As a mark of protest, in the evening, many, like in one place, if there is an incident, simultaneously in all the adjoining areas, people will gather and they would protest against whatever repression or shooting would have happened in the morning. One very important feature of the movement in Bihar, and maybe in other areas also, was the violent retaliation of the people in terms of destroying public property. That was seen in a big way. They would destroy the means of communication, like the railways, wires, the telegraph wires, the telephone lines. Even they would take out the railway lines. They would destroy totally the railway lines. Government establishments were targeted and attacked, and the main aim was to totally destroy the communication networks. This was also symbolic of defying the British authority. There were several leaders in most of these districts of Bihar. One, of course, the national figure is Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was very early on arrested. So we also see that this movement went almost leaderless in terms of the national leadership, but there were district leaders that arose in various parts of Bihar. For example, in Saran, under the leadership of Jaglal Chaudhary was seen. In Sindhwada, Karpuri Thakur took a lot of took part in activities of destruction. Apart from this, in the areas of Bhagalpur, Bhita, Munger, etc., a lot of public property was destroyed under local leadership initiative. Another interesting feature was that in order to initiate propaganda, trains were taken over and named as Swaraj trains. They would stop a train and call it the Swaraj train. This especially happened under the leadership of Siaram Singh, who was there in North Bhagalpur. In Siwan, Ekma, Dharauli, etc., people established their own administrative system called the Swatantra Mandal. So these were established, and they said not exactly a government, but an administrative system. The aim was to set up parallel governments in these areas. And another example is in Sultanpur, this was established. As I said earlier, Jayaprakash Narayan played a lead role in the Quit India movement. And under his leadership, especially the guerrilla war training was given to youths. And a center of guerrilla training was established for this. The All India Center and the Bihar Provincial Office of Azad Dasta was directed from Nepal, which is close to Bihar in the north. And they set up the special initiative to destroy government property. Their aim was stated as destruction of property. The main aim was to obstruct the government in its war efforts. So they knew that the British government has a soft spot in terms of the war efforts. In March, April 1943, in the Ramvilas forest of Nepal, the first Azad Dasta training camp was set up. And 25 young men from Bihar received training in the use of firearms. This was headed by Sardar Nityanand Singh. However, as I earlier remarked, they became a source of, soon a lot of social crime happened, but also simultaneously one sees, especially in the volumes of freedom movement of Bihar by K.K. Datta, how these dastas were the source of inspiration for the Parshuram Dal and the Mahendra Gopal Das Dal. Violence and police repression, they became the rule during this movement, and countless examples of police atrocities were seen. Phulan Prasad Srivastava became the target of police bullets in Siwan Thana when he was trying to hoist a flag atop a building. In Saran, Jaglal Chaudhary, he burnt a police thana, and police stations were burnt near Muzaffarpur. Shyam Bihari Lal was shot dead while hoisting a flag in one of the thanas near Muzaffarpur. Similarly, Dhruv Kumar was killed by police bullet in Katihar Thana. So the government, as a result of this, and of course there were many examples of the tribals, like we have the Sipahor movement in this, during this period, and they were also joining hands with the people to create trouble for the British. The government actually then, as a result of this, was forced to retaliate in terms of repression. About 15,000 people were arrested in Bihar. That's a big number, and 134 killed and 326 were injured. Thus, the Quit India movement had a major influence on the peasants, students, zamindars, women, government servants. So almost all the cross sections of society joined this and proved to be the last battle of the Indian struggle for freedom against the British. Thank you.